as a coach, I have ideal characteristics and traits in my mind or in my coaching philosophy that I want the makeup of a perfect athlete in my program to be. So the ideal athlete, the ideal player on my team looks like this. So we're talking about having a kid or maybe a couple of kids on the team who are dynamic athletes where it's no doubt this person should be starting and playing, but they're frustrating to you. For one reason or another, these kids are frustrating to you because they don't have the work ethic. They just happen to be really talented. And so therefore it's a poor example for the other kids, right. Or they're goof off maybe. Yeah. They're a goof off, but they're a gamer. They show up at game time and play, you know?
Welcome to the Coaching Life Podcast. My name is Pat Martin. I'm here with my good friend, Coach Chris Stewart. Coach, how you doing today on this Tuesday morning?
Wide awake, doing well. Been up moving some furniture over here in campus.
Yeah.
I guess I shouldn't say that out on the recording. That's not necessarily supposed to do that.
That's true. Yeah,
although I was helping the people that were supposed to be doing it.
So they
were doing it. Heck, they moved right through that stuff, but they actually asked for some help because
it's hard to. Let me ask you this: is that protocol in the high school ranks? Like, are you allowed to say hang your own whiteboard in your locker room or something like that as a coach, or are you supposed to get the maintenance people?
I'm sure you have the same issues there.
I would think so. Yeah.
It depends on I guess it depends on what it is. Out on your field and stuff like that, and inside your dugouts, and you probably do whatever you want. But I'll bet if they're probably, I don't know. It's probably technically the same. It's supposed to be the same, but they turn a blind eye to a lot of that stuff. I wasn't supposed to spray anything on the field when I was at Athens.
Oh, you weren't?
Oh, there was one. Yeah, I got stuff confiscated. I got my pump sprayers confiscated, and it wasn't weed killer. It was clover killer, like clover and crabgrass, creeping Charlie killer and all that.
Oh, I got
out there. And I had actually, I knew this. I knew there's one guy back. They had to fill out those MSDS sheets and all that.
Yeah.
For all the chemicals they've got. Well, there's one guy who was in charge of that. One of the union members was in charge of that, and he was the only one who took the proper tests, I guess, to be able to spray stuff. And he was
the red tape.
Yeah, and
it's just
he enjoyed telling everybody that too. I said
that he was the guy.
Yeah, and so I said, well, I'll tell you what, we need this done. I said, if you got the chemicals, come do it. And he goes, well, I don't have the chemicals. And I said, oh, well, here, I'll send you some links and you can order them. Well, I don't have the budget. I'm not gonna be able to do it. I said, well, here's the thing, it needs to be done. I said, I want it to be done, so I'm willing to buy it myself. No, you can't. And so I tell you what,
why?
You're gonna have, because I wasn't allowed to spray.
No, but
that's
you
the
could buy it yourself, though, right?
Well, I could buy it, but it'd just be sitting there, And he didn't want. Here's the other thing. Well, this is funny. I said, well, I tell you what, I'll buy it because I want to buy it, and you just come down and do it. Then he goes, nope, not doing it. I said, why? He goes, out of principle.
Out of principle?
He said, they won't give me the budget to buy what I need, and so I'm not going to do it. And I said, well, I tell you what, buddy, I'm going to do it because I want this field to be as good as it can be for these kids. It doesn't come back to you, it comes back to the kid. But those are the kinds of things. That's the kind of stress that you're just signed up for, right?
Everyone thinks it's just about managing games, right?
Oh my, yeah, exactly. Here's a little bit of behind the scenes. I went down and sprayed one Sunday evening, when I knew there wasn't going to be anybody on campus. So here I am,
you still might be liable for this.
I'm probably liable for it. It was over 5 years ago, so that's probably. And it was a different school. I don't care. They can forfeit games up there. But no, I came back to get my stuff because I was going to use some of it for my own yard. I bought the stuff, and so I came back to get my stuff out of the building. It was gone, and so I'm like, what in the world? And so the AD texted me. He said, hey, by the way, if you can't find your sprayers and your chemicals, they got confiscated by Dwight Schrute. I called him Dwight Schrute.
If no one knows who Dwight Schrute is, you can Google that, or just go on Peacock or Netflix and look up The Office.
Watch The Office. And that's the guy I'm dealing with right here, right? So I called him. I said, I need you to bring my stuff back. I said, those are that's my personal property. And I said, I know how he felt about that. I said, he got the hint. So he brought him down, and I said, can we sit down and talk? So we went in the dugout and sat down and talked, because he brought him down, and as he was getting him out of his truck, he said, you know better. I told you shouldn't have had. I said, well, I tell you what, can we talk? Just like two human beings. So we sat down and we talked, and while we're sitting there in the dugout, I kid you not, he pulls out a cigarette and lights it. And this is a rules guy, right? Like, he's got to play by the letter of the law rules. And I'm just letting him drag on that thing as we're talking. I said, look, man, I said, this is frustrating to me, because even though we had the chemicals available, you wouldn't do it. It has to get done. He said, I understand that. I said, well, what does it take then to get somebody else certified to spray? He goes, well, I could actually sub-license you. I said, well, do it right now. Whatever it takes, like wave your hand over me, sign a paper, whatever. We'll get a napkin out of the press box. You sign. He's like, well, I tell you what. And I said, let me ask you this. I said, it's about keeping the rules, right? And he goes, well, we really should. He said, we could get in trouble for it. I said, buddy, you're smoking right now on school property. And you know what? That conversation took a much lighter turn after that.
I'm surprised.
After that recognition.
I feel like most people would
because
feel
he didn't feel
about
threatened. No, not at all. He said, yeah, I know I shouldn't be. I said, well, that's the thing. I said, and I shouldn't be spraying, but you and I both know it's not going to hurt anything. And you could smoke if you want to smoke a cigarette, you could stamp it out, throw it away. No one's hurting anything except for you. I said, I'm not going to tell on you. I said, how about you not tell on me for spraying the field? And we came to it was a turning point in our relationship.
The corruption involved in high school.
This is how you
coaching.
Deal with your maintenance staff, and you find a common ground, and it was a turning point in our relationship. I'm not kidding you. From that point on, we were good.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, and our field looked good too. Yeah. I had to pick up cigarette butts out of the dugout all the time, but no. We have, I guess, weed killer that is, acceptable.
Man,
he did that. I shouldn't tell this story either.
You better not.
They would just ride around on the gator and spray.
Yeah.
And then they just drive that thing over top of the same warning track that they sprayed. And when you
get on the wheels.
Oh yeah, you're not even supposed to walk. Like, you walk in it, you'll put footprints on your. Even if you think it's dry, like after you've sprayed, if you happen to step in an area where you sprayed and then walk out on your grass, you're going to kill that spot on your grass.
Oh no!
I had a spot like that on the grass this past spring summer that I hadn't realized. Must have stepped in it or something, and they would drive off of that warning track across the grass, and you could see dead spots
in the outfield. Hopefully,
no.
Oh no,
that was across the infield.
Oh no, coach.
Yeah.
So what do? You just reseed that as soon as you can, or fertilize it?
It takes a long time. Yeah, just keep working it up. What's the word I'm looking for? Aerate it. Aerate that spot and just keep water it like crazy. It's just gonna die. It's gonna have to come back.
All right.
Like that spot on our field looks great now. Came back. I mean, you can't even tell. But that was the middle of the season.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. There's nothing you do about it. Ugh.
Yeah.
That hurts you.
Yeah. The woes. Right. It's all worth it, though.
There's all these things you have to think about. You come in with a plan.
Oh, we recording a podcast today? That'll be daggone. We are, aren't we?
I started it. I don't know. We may have to start over. You come in with a plan. You always have these plans, and the plans are often challenged, I would say. I think that's one. I think you and I have talked about this before. An identified weakness for me is being flexible, adapting, especially to a practice plan. I come out with a practice plan. I want to hit that thing to the T, every minute. I want to get everything in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if one person doesn't show up that I expect to show up, it puts me into puts me on tilt. I'm ready to throw my hands up in the air. But you have plans. You got to adapt them. we had an individual reach out to us after our hustle episode, and wanted our
2 episodes ago.
wanted to ask us what we thought about a certain scenario. You know, we talked about it when you were hired as the coach at Eastern, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago on my interview for after I was hired as the coach at Megs, about the type of player that the perfect the makeup of the perfect Eastern Eagle or the perfect Megs Marauder. And we said all these good words and put all these guidelines out for what would be important to them and how they would behave and things like that. And the question was, what happens when you don't get that right away? Or specifically, what happens when one of your better players, or maybe even a kid that you really like, that you really enjoy being around, that you think a lot of, you think they're going to be successful in life, they don't really match up to those expectations that you put out in the form of that perfect player? And how do you manage that as a coach? And I've been thinking about that, and it's a tough question. It's a tough situation, because you do get in situations where, you cannot win without talent, Coach. Do you agree with that statement?
100%.
Yeah. So talent, drives a program. Talent
you can't win consistently. You'll win a game or two.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Yes. Yeah. True. Yeah. Yes. Talent drives consistency. That's a great point. That's
because the truth is, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
To be quite honest.
Yeah. No, I've always felt that too. I've gotten arguments over people like that.
The idea there is to get your talent to work hard.
Yes.
I mean, you can have a bunch of people who aren't talented, work as hard as they want. They're not going to win very many games.
Right. I've been asked that before. What would you rather have, 9 talented players or 9 players that worked hard? And it's like,
why do you have to have one or the other?
Right. Yeah. But it's like, well, I want the talent because
because you want to keep your job. Because the truth is, coaching is way overrated. And if you have talent as a coach, you're going to win games. And there are going to be years when you're not going to have the same kind of talent, and you're not going to win. You're not going to win as many games. And the key there is to be able to take, or you may have 1 or 2 kids that are really talented, and the rest of them are not. And that's tough. So the key is okay. How can we help this kid? The kid that's really good, to elevate his teammates, right?
Sure.
Let's just pour into him leadership qualities that will help elevate his teammates. And then you as a coach have to do the same thing. Take these kids that aren't quite as talented, or they're not there yet, maybe they're young or whatever.
Right, yeah,
experience, and get the most out of them. We know coaches who are able to get the most out of kids.
Yes.
And that's what you hope to be able to do.
Yeah. And if you find yourself in that situation as a coach, I would think, I've kind of evaluating it from my perspective. I think the easy thing to do, and probably the thing that comes to mind maybe first, is there's nothing you can do about it, right? It's just you got to deal with this. It's a bad situation. He's the most talented kid. He's my best pitcher, and I can't really. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't enforce the same rules because, it'll hurt the team. It'll cost us wins. It'll hurt the other players. And I think, that's...
So let me go back to make sure that I am fully comprehending the question that we're answering today.
Well,
the question from a listener is, as a coach, I have ideal characteristics and traits in my mind or in my coaching philosophy,
right, that
I want the makeup of a perfect athlete in my program to be.
Yep, keyword there.
Okay. So the ideal athlete, the ideal player on my team looks like this.
Yep.
However, I have a team that's made up of some kids who you're rarely going to have. Let's be honest. You're rarely going to have a team, hardly ever going to have a team filled with that ideal athlete.
Because nobody's perfect.
It doesn't exist, right?
Right. Yeah,
it's an ideal athlete. But you may have one come around. I mean, every now and then you got one. I had one last year that was pretty darn close to my ideal The way his work ethic, his talent, his leadership, his humility, everything. It was really, really. He's probably one of the best that I've had in that.
I think what it comes down to is, those types of kids, those types of athletes have a group of the qualities, enough of the qualities that some of the qualities they don't have that aren't 100% there, they're masked, or they don't have a negative impact because of all the other stuff that they bring.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have kids that really have a lacking of a quality that stands out and that that everyone sees, and
But he's a really good player,
right?
So he doesn't fit your. He doesn't necessarily fit your. So we're talking about having a kid or maybe a couple of kids on the team who are dynamic athletes, where it's no doubt this person should be starting and playing, but they're frustrating to you.
Yes.
For one reason or another, these kids are frustrating to you because they don't have the work ethic. They just happen to be really talented. They don't, and so therefore it's a poor example for the other kids,
right.
Or they're goof off, maybe.
Yeah.
They're goof off, but they're a gamer. They show up at game time and play. Is that what we're trying to talk about?
Yeah, I mean,
today?
it's a I'm the middleman here, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Well, you looking at me like?
Well, I've got two ideas.
I've experienced that. I don't want to use names because I've been coaching. people, it's a chance people listen and know who I'm talking about. But it is frustrating. Yeah. I've had kids that I thought, man, there's a lot there.
So what do you? Because let me give you an example that is different but kind of the same. When you, like in the NFL, I know the Browns did this with Joe Thomas. Joe Thomas was the left tackle for the Browns for 11 years. I think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Great player. As he got older in his career, he didn't practice as much as the other guys. They gave him time off. Now, you can say that was a strategic thing to make sure he was healthy, but the bottom line is the way they managed, Joe Thomas, the person, the player, was to give, basically he didn't, not that he didn't work as hard when he was there, but he didn't work as much. And, is that, what's different?
Roger Clemens had the same deal.
Oh, yeah, a lot.
I mean, that's Houston Astros.
Everybody, a lot of pro athletes have that.
Yeah.
Well, let me, this is a good example. King Griffey Jr. Remember when Brenneman ripped his butt for not running down the first baseline? Yeah. But he's consistently dealing with hamstring issues. Yeah. And you want King Griffey Jr. to hit the ball hard. I mean, that's why he's in the lineup. So are you really upset as a coach when King Griffey grounds out, for the last out of a game, a 4-run ball game, and he doesn't hustle down the line?
I get what Brenneman was saying.
I do too.
Because appearances mean a lot, right?
Right.
And especially if you got younger players in that dugout that maybe don't know, that aren't thinking along those same lines, right? Like they don't understand why maybe there's a good reason why he's choosing not to give a burst here, because he seems like he snapped a hamstring every time he did that.
Right.
And
Bryce Harper's a good example of that too, kind of in the opposite way. I love the way Bryce Harper
We played
plays.
that clip a few weeks ago on our hustle. Remember that? We played a clip of him.
That's right. Yes.
Jogging and turning and going straight to the dugout on a ball that was hit back to the pitcher. The pitcher bobbled.
Yes.
Yeah, and the coach sat him out the rest of the game.
The what I was thinking was, though, like his flamboyance, like the way that he plays the game, and like a lot of the older guys were like, "Oh, you don't play the game that way," and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And me, I'm like, I like that. I like his energy. I like him having. Baseball's a fun game to play. Why not have fun?
Yeah.
But there's also something to be said about what the makeup of your roster as that baseball team. If he has a bunch of older guys around him, they're not going to receive him well.
So as alienate himself.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So as a coach, you worry about those things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Have to.
How do you
deal with it?
Yeah.
And you know what? It's easy to talk about it among the pros.
Sure.
Because it's one, we're not there, but two, it's a whole different animal.
It is. It's completely different. It's a good example, but a bad example because it's a different game.
As a high school coach, how do you manage that? And as a youth coach, how do you manage that?
Because you're also trying to develop people, right?
Yeah. One person, you could just easily say, well, you know what? If that's the way they are, cut them.
Whew. Yeah.
You're gonna cut a guy that's gonna hit 400 potentially.
Cut a guy that's gonna hit 400. That's tough.
No. Just give you that answer right now. No way.
You're probably not going to be around long if you do that, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to explain.
Yeah.
I've got two ideas. I'll give you one,
okay,
and then you can respond to it and see if you have something. I think this comes down to, it comes down to relationship and communication for me. Mm-hmm. I think, and it may not work. It may not work. You may be frustrated with that player, for 4 years as a high school coach or longer, and I'll come up with I'll add to that later. But I think that's why it's important for players and coaches to have a good personal relationship with each other, because that's how, that makes communication better. That makes it easier to have tough conversations. It makes it easier to encourage effective behavior, right? And if that, you're never going to get a player to do anything for you if they don't. They're either going to have to be afraid of you or they're going to have to trust you.
Yeah. Right.
It's hard to make players afraid of you these days, I think.
Yeah.
The world that we live in. The
coaches that try to do that, you always tend to see something coming up controversial.
Yeah.
On the Twitter feed or on, that this guy said this or did this, and because all it takes, if you're trying, you got an entire locker room of people, and all it takes is one whose feelings get hurt, and then you're ruined.
Yeah, and these kids are friends.
It's hard. Yeah, it is. There's a different approach. There's a reason why coaches like Bill Parcells had to get out of the game. That was his style, right? And he just knew he couldn't. I can't coach anymore. I can't coach the way Jimmy Johnson, I'm pretty sure, is probably the same, although he got paid a lot of money after retiring from
he did, for sure.
From the Cowboys.
You think Jimmy Johnson, was that how Jimmy Johnson coached?
Man, he was a hothead.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't really realize that.
He was fiery, yeah. But John Gruden also.
Probably why I never couldn't stick around for the Cowboys because, Jerry.
Oh, well, the stories are that he butted heads badly with
only one guy.
It was his way or the highway. Right. Well, it's also Jerry's way or the highway.
It's got to be. Right. Yeah. It's got to be Jerry.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I think there, you have to have, and like I said, I don't think there's a fixed, a guaranteed solution to any of this. I just think, if you have that issue with a player, that's where you really have to focus on that relationship, so that they, you're on the same page, they trust you so that you can trust them. And, when it gets to that point, it's easier for them to understand and hear team messages.
Yes.
I need you to do this because of this. Yep. I don't, when you do this stuff, this happens to the team. And if they don't trust you, if they don't respect you, it's hard to get those messages through.
Yeah, that's a good word. I've had on rare occasions, I've had this experience. I had a player that was very, very, very good. You knew he was going to, everybody on the team, the kids knew he was really, probably the best hitter, and without a doubt he was the best pitcher. And so when he was in the game, that's what you're going to get. I mean, there was no way that you would give this person a lesser role in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. But some people, well, if you're not born with a natural charismatic leadership quality, then you got to build it. I think leaders can be made without a doubt. And, but some people don't want to be made a leader. And this guy didn't want to be a leader.
Yeah.
And so I did have to do that. There were times, I had moments, and it was plural, not one moment. There were moments when I had to just sort of, meet him at his car one day after practice and say, hey, let's chat about something real quick. You know, you're not in trouble, but I want to explain a big picture thing to you, you know?
Right.
You know, like maybe he was goofing off in practice that day because this is a guy that could goof off and still hit the ball over the fence. I mean, you know, it's just,
Right.
yeah, it's just, but you don't want that. You
Yeah.
don't want that because the kids that can't afford to goof off because it's going to really, you know, I mean, his game was never hurt.
Right.
It didn't matter what he did. When he stepped on the field, he was going to be good.
Yeah.
These other kids, they couldn't do that. And that's kind of the approach I took. I said, you have a gift. You have an incredible gift. And I said, I know it's not just all gift. You do work hard. You work hard in the areas that you want to work hard in. But I said, there are times when you and I both know you don't. And there are times when you clown around a little bit, right? The problem with that is, I said, it's one thing to have fun. I like to have fun. I put on music during BP. I walk around, jaw with you guys. I said, there are times when we have fun. So that sometimes the problem is you don't know where the line is.
Right.
You want to have fun, you know. And I said, there are a lot of young kids on this team, a lot of younger, and some guys aren't younger. They're just they're your peers who don't have the same kind of talent that you have. They don't have the same kind of gift that you have, and they have the times when you maybe don't have to work as hard. They got to, and when they see somebody that they see as a leader, and what was funny is I remember one time having this conversation with him, and I could see his eyes roll when I used that word, leader, because he didn't want to be a leader. And I said, look, I know, and I stopped. And I said, look, I know it's not something that you want, but it's something you've been granted, whether you like it or not. And it's like being born royalty, right? You may not want to be a prince. That's who you are.
Right.
And I said, so respect that. I said, whether you want it or not, respect it. And I said, what I mean by that is just recognize that everything you do, there are eyes watching you, and you're a model for other people.
Right.
And I said, can we have a system where you and I, like, we can communicate without having to communicate this out loud? Like, you know, like I can, you know, when you're doing something that I think you should, you know, maybe change that behavior, I could kind of look at you and nod or whatever. And he was good with that. I mean, this is a guy that I knew since he was younger too, you know, a little kid. And so I was, that relationship was already there. And so I was able to have that kind of a conversation. But yeah, it was just, it was and that's a type of player that is frustrating because everybody has seen it. You've heard people say this before. Boy, I wish I could take the heart out of this guy over here who's maybe slow and fat and can't play, has no talent whatsoever, but man, he loves the game and he gives everything he's got. I wish I could take his heart and swap it with this guy over here who's been given a God-given gift, but he takes it for granted, and swap him out, right? And
that's what I did my whole high school career.
Everybody has those kinds of players.
I always wished.
Oh, your coach was saying that about you. I wish I could take your heart and put it in this guy over there.
Yeah, exactly. No. I was saying that about me. I wish I could have that guy's talent.
Right.
If I could have that guy's talent.
But, you know, it just, sometimes that's what you've got. I mean, it's a really wild thing. And, you know, it's why there are coaches. It's why we're there.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
that little thing there has nothing to do with teaching mechanics of a swing,
right? Or
getting in a bullpen and going through that. But that affects the team.
Yes.
In ways that are completely intangible, but in extremely valuable ways.
Oh man, I hear you. That's a good point. That's all, I always Dusty Baker, Reds fans, man. They wanted
to get him out of town.
They wanted to get rid of Dusty Baker, and I kept saying, "Don't get rid of Dusty Baker. Like, he can't win the big game. He doesn't make good decisions. Like, you don't want him because of the decisions he makes in a game.
He's the guy that players today especially love.
Yeah, he's a clubhouse guy.
He is.
He makes things run smooth.
Yeah.
And when they got rid of him, you know, but now they do have some chemistry now. Maybe that you know, the new coach is doing a better job of that. But yeah, you have to. That's your job, to make things mesh together. And I was going to say, is there ever a moment where maybe you let that go because you're watching, you see a certain type of behavior out of a player, but it's not really impacting the rest of the team.
Right.
Hard to say, over the course of the season how it might.
Yeah.
Right. Because you got to expect that, a certain type of behavior will have a negative impact, regardless. And it's hard to leave that to chance.
Yeah.
But that's something you have to consider, because what you want, it's about the program more than necessarily. The reason you want a perfect player, the reason you have a player with all these certain attributes, all these certain qualities, is because you want you want that player to succeed. True. Mm-hmm. But you want the program to have a certain appearance as well. Mm-hmm. So if there's a leveling out of all these different attributes of all these different people, you can still get to where you're at.
Yeah, you have to,
but you got to be careful.
You as a coach are always thinking on a program level.
Yes,
and your kids aren't always thinking, and your parents certainly aren't thinking that
right.
way. But you've got to find a way to help the kid think on the bigger picture of the program level as well, and take pride in that. Take pride in what they do because of that. And that's a harder thing to do today than it was years ago. I mean,
why do you think?
Well, there's just no pride in anybody's school anymore. Anyway, I mean, a lot of it's a community thing. Where
I'll tell you what I think. I'll tell you something that really handicaps it, and that's the turnover. I think
coaching turnover.
Yes, I think this is
get kids who have different sets of rules every other year.
Yeah,
and things like that.
I think a coach, here's the thing, if you want to, and this was my second idea, if you want to make sure that the kids in your high school program have the qualities and attributes that you look for in the quote unquote perfect player for your program, you start developing that in youth ball. Mm-hmm. And so that's a coach's responsibility, I would say. But here's the flip side to that. As a school, as a district, you got to make sure the best that you can. I understand. Some people aren't right for the job, and sometimes you don't know that until 2 or 3 years into it, and you have to make a change. That's that's the way it is. But don't your goal, your mission should be, we want to hire a coach that's going to be there as long as possible. Yeah, because it's culture, and I think that impacts the parents. Because you say, parents aren't into that. Mm-hmm. Well, who's teaching them to be that way? You know what I mean? Who's talking to them about these types of things? Who's modeling these types of things for them? That's a culture, right? And it takes a long time to build. So it helps the parents, it helps the players, it helps your coaches coming up through, and it helps everything to know, one, for that coach and that program to interact with the community, with the youth, and two, for those kids that are T-ballers, to know that Coach Stewart's going to be my baseball coach when I get into high school. That's powerful.
It is.
For a program.
Yeah.
And I think I think if there's any solution, that's the best route right there. It's difficult because you don't always get the opportunity.
Right.
It's a lot of extra work, but I think to me, that makes it, this is the most logical direction to go.
Well, all the gears,
what you want.
All the different moving parts are working together for the same purpose, and all these different, all the different levels of play, all the different people, all the different roles. They all have the same common thing in mind when they're doing what they're doing, and therefore it just becomes natural for the kids that come through the program to think the same way while they're playing for you.
Yeah.
And so they already have that bigger picture view of it. Yeah, I can see that. I felt that when I took over after Coach Gibson at Athens, because there were things that he had established and was very firm about, and it had been that way for a long time. Honestly. Role players, kids that sat on the bench, that had to sit out games, had to pay their dues. Kids didn't come into that program, and they still didn't. They didn't when I was there. I mean, there were, you have moments, years, certain people, certain families that are a little more difficult than others. But for the most part, when kids came in as freshmen and sophomores, there was zero expectation that they were going to get any varsity time at all.
Yeah.
Because, well, one, Gibby was very, very much into playing older guys. And I think I remember him saying to me, there was one guy, Kyle Dean, he started as a varsity as a freshman. I started varsity as a freshman. We had one other guy that did it. They started to trickle in, but I mean, it was rare, very, very rare, because it just wasn't. It wasn't something he wanted to ever do. He had good reasons for it as well, but he said like every once in a while, a player will come around and they belong on the varsity squad. And there are a lot of people who come into high school and, I mean, they just assume I got a shot here to make the varsity team, and you always want them to have that, but they didn't. That was just not an expectation.
Right.
I didn't. It was good because then I had a little different philosophy. I wanted to put the best. I didn't care what grade you were in. I'm going to put the best. What I felt like the best 9 was out there.
Sure, absolutely.
He did the same thing. It's not that he did. He always did that.
No.
It's just that he was a little more strenuous. In his bringing up of younger kids.
Sure. It's an indicator of the strength of your program.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Right.
If you have a lot, if you're year after year having a lot of freshmen, sophomore play varsity, your program's probably not that strong. That's just all
you're right.
And I would say that I've seen this kind of this. When I was in high school, Daniel Hannon, a good friend of mine, basketball player at Meigs, played varsity when he was a freshman, and it was I made the varsity team. And he was good enough to play. I mean, he was an exception to that rule. I mean, he was good.
Yeah.
Now it seems like it's a disappointment for freshmen don't feel like that they're good if they don't play varsity. And that's to me that's a culture thing.
It's a real
program.
detriment to high school programs to have that, because then you might have kids that decide, well, I didn't make it this year, so I'm just going to quit, give it up.
Right.
Or maybe coming from their parents too. I mean, that happens. I mean, it's but I definitely can confirm that point that you made about the culture and the longevity, the culture being built because of longevity is a way to, it's not a short-term answer to this question, but it is definitely a good answer to the question.
So Meigs,
where you're at,
just keep rolling it over. Don't think about getting rid of me.
That's right. Oh, you had. I see you had another motive for giving that answer. I see. Yeah. I really think people would. I do. I think the people who do the hiring, they want coaches to have longevity.
They do.
But they're also under. I mean, for some reason, people think that they can just go directly to the superintendent about anything that they want and complain about today. And too many school districts get that. They get, somebody gets chapped because their kid didn't start on a team, or it might be something silly like their uniform is a little bit different color because it's faded, and really dumb things. You forgot to give my kid his letter at the end of the school year last year, and so I'm now going to hold it against you. These are real examples that I remember over the years, right?
It's our cancel culture.
Oh my goodness,
we can't disagree about anything.
So what are we going to do about it? I want that coach fired. Right?
Yes.
I want that coach fired.
Right. Yeah. Communication's key.
It is.
Communication's important. Yeah. I don't know. Do you have a protocol at Eastern, or did you have one at Athens in regards to issues like that? Did you talk about that? Like, hey, look, if there's an issue, and a parent wants to talk to me, this is the protocol you should follow.
Oh yeah. That's in the manual. That's in the team playbook. Yeah. And I've actually changed my entire line of thinking on that. I used to have a really quick answer to that, and that was, I'll communicate everything through our athletes, and I expect them to be, responsible young men, and we communicate things to you accurately back, and it's kind of me saying I don't want to have a relationship with parents, right? Yeah. And I'm certainly not going to talk with you about playing time. I'll talk to your kid about that, things like that.
Well, that's probably still a rule, isn't it?
That's still there.
Not necessarily. You just don't. There's just no comparison talk, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
We can talk about playing time, but not what's he need to do to get more playing time.
But I do everything I can to communicate with parents now, and to I want to say befriend, but not be a butthole. Not create a separation between coach and parent. I just don't think that works anymore. I don't think it's not valuable to your program. It's detrimental, because you need these people to be good stakeholders and and volunteers, and they're your fans. Your parents are your biggest fans. I know we talk a lot about, we give parents a hard time on this podcast, but we couldn't do what we do without parents. We just couldn't.
That's a fact.
And so, yeah, and recognizing that, I just outline and say, look, I know that you're not going to agree with everything that I do, and as a coach, that we do as a staff, and a lot of it's going to have to do with the way we treat your child. Let's just get that out of the way right now.
Right.
We're not being fair to him for one reason or another because you feel like he should be playing a different position or whatever. Just get that out of the way. I know it's going to happen at some point. If it doesn't, then feel really blessed. You've got one of those kids who's just awesome. Right? Awesome one way or the other. He's really, really good, and so he's always where you think he should be, or he's not really very good at all, and everybody understands, yeah, he's a good bookkeeper, right? He's a good role player. He's doing what he should be doing.
Right.
But most of you are, at some point or another, you're going to disagree with me, and I get that. That's fine. Just make sure that you press pause for a moment and ask yourself, okay, have I been rooting for the entire team this year? Do I really care about the entire team? Mm-hmm. Do I care about because a lot of times the reason why we get upset is because we're thinking about this one person
Sure.
that lives with us, that we love very tenderly, and we're heartbroken when their hearts are breaking. I guess you're just asking them to trust that you have the best interest of the program in mind.
Yep. And like
there really isn't much else you could say other than that. This is what's gonna happen.
Yep.
Just press pause. Don't call me up right away, mad. But we'll talk about things. And
it's hard to trust without a relationship.
Yeah.
So if you break off that line of communication, it's hard to have a relationship without communication. So
Right.
if you break off that line of communication, that makes things like that difficult. So
It does.
yeah, I would agree with
does.
opening that up. It's I think you have to be willing to have conversations and be honest with each other. You know what I mean?
yeah. What I think, and you asked, do I have a protocol for it? I think that's extremely important, is to up front let them know these are the you're not going to come up with an answer for every possible scenario that's going to happen throughout the year, but you can certainly predict some. I mean, so here's
non-emergency protocol.
right. I mean, you have that for everything. We talked about one, earlier in the week about, kids missing practice for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you're missing practice because you're just skipping because you didn't feel like coming today, you're going to probably sit out the next game. You're not going to play. But but if you're missing because you're injured, well, both kids are missing practice. Shouldn't they both sit out? Right? No. You going to punish a kid for being injured? If you don't spell that out before the beginning of this year,
Right.
you're giving yourself problems. You have the opportunity
You're saying if it's
to
not
put a fire out that's never, I mean, well, I should say that you have an opportunity to not have that fire get started in the first place. I mean, for example, if everybody thinks that you have a rule that a kid should sit out because they miss practice, but there's no nuance to that rule. The nuance being, well, what's the reason? What's the reason you didn't practice?
Yeah.
Right? Well, if you have a hardline rule, well, if that's your rule, then it's your rule. Do it. Right? I don't have to agree with it. But if you in the back of your mind know, well, it's not right for me to set this person out because they missed practice for a completely different reason than the other person missed practice for.
Right.
Then, well, the problem is if I didn't communicate that up front, all the people see is one person's playing and the other person isn't, and they both miss practice.
True.
But if I communicate that in a playbook or in some kind of team manual or in some kind of parent meeting or whatever at the beginning of the year, this is the criteria that creates an unexcused absence versus an excused absence.
Right.
That's all it is. Unexcused versus excused.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
A legitimate injury is an excused absence. Therefore, you come right back, you're going to play.
Yeah. Well, and I think because as like I've read your play, I haven't shared mine.
And
with
that's
you
in
yet.
there. Yeah, I'd like to see yours. Yeah.
Well, you'll probably recognize some of the content. So, but it's in there because in these manuals, we spell out our our purpose and our objective and the way that we're going to go about doing things. And when you make decisions as a coach, what you should be able to do is go back into those guidelines and say, was this action that was taken in favor of these or in odds to, in opposition to these?
Yeah.
And I think that makes it a lot easier to determine, when it's necessary to take action. You're not going to be able
consistency
Yeah.
is really, really important.
Yeah.
And if you have it outlined, it's easier for you to be consistent in in the decisions that you're making in those gray areas.
Yeah, because you're not going to be, you can't when we're talking about these manuals, at least from my perspective, yours might be different. I don't outline every scenario I can think of. Like, if you miss practice for this reason, you're not going to play. If you miss it for this reason, you're not going to play. You can't do that. You know what I mean?
But there's a principle behind it that everybody understands.
Yeah. Like, why did you miss practice?
Yeah.
And how does that fit into the program
expectation
vision?
is that you will be there. If you're healthy, you're going to come to practice, right? And you're going to work hard.
Well, let me ask you this, Coach. What about an academic,
reason?
Reason.
Yeah. Like maybe a kid is also in the band or the choir, and they've got a concert tonight, maybe, and you've got a game tomorrow, and this is the night before a game, and you're practicing tonight, and they have to miss because they have a concert.
Well, that's a little different. I think. Well, you want to.
No, I'm not setting that kid out.
You're not going to set that kid out.
Absolutely,
I'm not either. But
I mean, a concert it's a school event. It's an academic event, an extracurricular event.
An extracurricular event.
But if they're going to watch Bon Jovi, I'm setting their butts out.
We're going to have that conversation early, though. I'm going to make sure they know that I support them doing other school extracurricular activities,
and that is different than Bon Jovi, right?
Sure,
I mean, it seems it seems like it's common sense, but it's not common sense.
It's not, and
to a lot of people, it's not common sense
because we have things in those handbooks that say we're going to support our school.
Right.
And when I said academic, I was thinking like an academic banquet where they, were getting awarded for having a 4.0 or something like that.
Oh, I've had kids leave games to go to the academic banquet before.
And why?
In the middle of the game.
Shoot. What's important? I guarantee, I know that in your handbook, you talk about academics.
Yeah.
Part of a perfect Eastern Eagle is a player,
is a straight A student
that focuses on academics. Part of the vision, right? It's part of your.
So there's no way I'm going to say no. You can't go to that.
Yeah, I really. That was when. Oh man, I can't believe I'm going to admit this. This is going to take all my thunder. It's going to steal all my future power. People forget. You came to me one time and offered me a position, a coaching position, for the
one time.
This is the only time I remember.
Which time was this?
This is when you absolutely knew that I couldn't say yes, so you came and offered it to me. But it was a Legion position. No, you didn't know. I'm just kidding. It was a Legion position, or, coaching position. You came back and were coaching a Legion team, and we had a conversation, and you left your Legion handbook with me. And I thought, wow,
the very first one I made. Yeah.
I thought this is a great idea. I love this. And over the years, I've seen different ones that you've made, and that's something that I've I've incorporated it into my new journey as a high school baseball coach. So and that's why, because I think it's so important to have these things up front. Now, here's my thing. I probably am missing some stuff in my book, in my playbook.
We all are.
But I'm going to, it's a living document, right? So year after year, it's going to change. It's going to be modified, and I'll try to, as best as I can, communicate. It's a form of communication. This is who we are. This is what we expect. This is what we're going to do. And, as we've talked about this whole time now, that's important for relationships and important for trust. It's important for getting the most out of your players, out of your fans, and out of your coaches. I really like it. Give you the credit for that, buddy.
Thank you. You just brought up something that I completely forgot about.
Okay.
I thought that I asked you to be on my coaching staff twice and you turned me down. But that's actually only been that I completely forgot that I asked you about. It's 3. Every major coaching role that I've had as a head coach, I've asked you. So American Legion in 2004, Athens in 2013, Eastern 21. Yeah, it was January 21. 3 times, folks. Every time, every head coaching job I've gotten, I've invited Pat to be on my staff, and he's turned me down.
Well, that
he said he was trying to have kids there the first time, right? So this was the excuse. No, I'm probably going to have kids soon. Well, then the second time it was, well, I got young kids. Okay, I can understand that one. But then the third time was just because he didn't want to wear green. I'm going to be really honest.
How did
don't know what to say, do you?
Well,
he's silent.
We're going to edit this out, and so we don't have to get back to it later in the future. But Coach, I'm sorry.
Well, you're in a good. I accept your apology and I forgive you, and you just could have had a lot of great experience working into this head coaching role.
I could have. And that was.
But you made for real. You made a choice that I will always, as much as we joke about it, I will always value choosing family over something. When you shouldn't do something, it's hard to say no. But the timing just wasn't ever there.
It was really hard.
It just wasn't there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all this time, you think I'm serious every time I joke with you about it, don't you?
I don't know.
So what are we going to edit out? What do you want edited out?
Just the whole conversation about, how many, because, I like to say you never have asked me.
So. Sorry, I got the editing power. That's staying.
So have we figured this out? Did we solve the problem?
You have to ask the listener, whoever gave us this topic. But I think I don't know.
It's not a clear answer.
It's a hard answer because you got to play with that. You got to have that kid there. You've got to have those kinds of. You're always going to have those kinds of players usually. And just count your blessing the fact that you have someone who is really good and he doesn't even know how good he could be, right?
Unless I guess he is such a polarizing presence that he's hurting.
If it's
the team.
a detriment to your team and your program, then you might have to make a difficult choice.
Right. Yeah. Because at that point, he's not helping you. You know, that talent really doesn't matter because it's taken away from everybody else. It's, it's not, bottom line is wins, I was, well, let's just
say. It really is, yeah.
If you win, it covers up a lot.
You're much more likely to keep your job.
That's just it. That's the bottom line.
You may not be happy.
True.
Winning doesn't equal happiness.
And you might not be developing people.
Right.
But if you win, it's easier. There's not as many complaints.
Up a lot easier.
Yeah. Because it's hard to complain about a team that wins.
Yeah. Yeah, we've played some teams, and I remember playing some teams where you just look at, it's going to be tough for them to win. But there was something about these guys. They were a family. You could tell,
Yeah.
And I would rather win. I want to win, but
I'd rather do both.
I do. Yeah. You'd really rather do both, but you do. You walk away. I got a team in mind right now that I thought these guys they're having the time of their life out there in the field right now, and they know they're not going to win, and it's but I guess it just depends on your perspective on what's going on there. Yeah.
And there's a lot to say about that and the values of a program.
Right. Because, what I'm thinking is that school district or that, they could easily say, man, why do we keep having this guy as a coach? Mm-hmm. We're not going to win, but the kids might absolutely love him. It's a hard thing.
It is.
It's a hard thing.
That with teachers.
Yeah.
Teachers have been not necessarily let go, but not retained for certain reasons,
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh man, we're gonna regret that one. We're gonna miss that one. That's he or she's a valuable part of these kids' lives. And
yeah,
I've experienced that. I've experienced that as a student.
Who's a valuable presence at the school district where you
I got a bunch of people.
Well, there's a lot. I'm sure you do. No, I mean I do too. I mean that's my alma mater. But I was telling somebody this. I was down there watching a basketball game last week, and the pep band played.
Yeah.
And Mr. Tony Dingus,
Oh my,
who's been there since I was a student there.
Absolutely.
The only person right now did Coach Oliphant retired, didn't he?
No, Coach Oliphant.
Oh, Jim's still there. Jim Oliphant's still there.
He's Mr. Oliphant, Coach Oliphant.
Well, yeah. Well, his son is working in the athletic department too.
Yep, he's assistant athletic director. Yep.
And so I assume people call him Coach too. Do they?
We call him. We
just call him by his name.
Call him all Coach.
Yeah. Well, it's, when you forget names, it's easy, right? When you walk around these clinics, it's really easy. What's up, Coach? It's all. But no, so Coach, because he and Tony were the only two there. When I went back and spoke a homecoming during that pep week or whatever a couple years ago, I made a point to point out that there were two teachers still teaching, two still in the faculty that were here when I was in school when I graduated in 1990, and then I had another one come and listen to the speech, who was actually my speech teacher, and I was still nervous when I saw her show up, thinking that she was grading me and critiquing me and everything. But man, I loved her. She was my favorite. And but no, I told the person sitting beside me, I told Dustin, I said, you know who they need? When this guy decides to retire, when Tony Dingus decides to retire, they need to build a statue out in front of that band room. He has done so much for that program.
Let me tell you,
that band is phenomenal every year.
I went to the concert the other night.
Yeah,
and the senior, the high school band and the junior high band plays, and they've kind of went up and down over the years. A small band, smaller band.
Sure, it's like athletics. You're going to have those years. Yeah,
there's 40 sixth graders.
Ooh.
46.
So he's not retiring yet, is he?
Well, you know what? I don't know. I don't know. But, he's got great assistants. That's another thing that I've always thought.
Well, and when you have people who come back, who graduate and then come back and want to help, you've got something special there.
Yes, and I've just thought, man, he puts people around him that know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I completely agree with you.
Yeah,
it's odd because I spent 4 years following chastity around my wife in high school in the band, and those band competitions are grueling.
Yes,
they're tough. You stick around in the heat and the cold.
I learned to leave her alone after that. I mean, let her have 24 hours or so after the old band competition.
But I loved it. It's because
intense.
They were good. I mean, they're good now. They won grand champion.
They had those moments where they would turn around and they'd start marching toward you and playing full on instrument, and your hair would stand up on your arm.
Oh man.
Yeah, I agree.
I love watching. It was
I was never involved in band, but man, I respect them and enjoy them.
Oh,
they're a huge part of a football game. Huge part of any sport that they come to. They're a huge part.
That's the difference between you and I. I was involved with the band.
Were you really?
Yes. Yep.
Did you play the flute?
You say that.
Well, you look like a flautist.
In the 6th grade.
The flutophone.
I played the clarinet.
That's close.
It is. I played the clarinet in the 6th grade.
Woodwind.
I played a mean Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Isn't that the first thing everybody learns how to play?
I think that's the only thing I ever learned how to play.
Little recorders you play in grade school.
Yeah.
We learn how to play those.
Clarinet.
Jeez.
Did it.
You brought your wife up, and this reminds me of something. I purposefully waited until we got behind these microphones.
Oh boy.
To ask you this.
Okay.
I was standing with somebody, and I can't remember where it was. I want to say it was in the weight room because it's the context of it. And you'll know it was either Wes, it was either one of my assistant coaches, or it may have been Mr. Detweiler, it may have been Nick, Superintendent Eastern.
Okay.
Who did you do CrossFit with? Which one of those people? Wes Buckley or Nick? Maybe it wasn't either one of them.
No, I didn't do CrossFit.
Well, I can't remember who it was, but anyway, whoever it was said, "Hey, you ever seen Pat's wife lift weights?" And I said, "No." I said, "In fact, I've had thousands of conversations with Pat, and not once, I don't think, has he mentioned his wife working out."
I don't think that's true.
And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And I go, "Oh, she's a beast." He said, "I have seen her," and I thought it was CrossFit. I've seen
maybe
her
Wes came for a little while. Coach
I think
Buckley
it was
came for
Wes,
a little
because
while.
we were in the weight room.
I started late. I wasn't going, but Chastity
315 pounds.
325.
325? Buddy, she outlifts you.
Wait a second. How do you?
Are we talking squat or deadlift?
Deadlift.
That's good.
Deadlift.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's strong.
I understand now. I understand why you follow her around in malls all the time. She'll whoop your behind if you don't go with it.
Well,
you've got nothing to say.
moving on.
You're like, well,
No, she does.
It is what it
Went and
is.
competed in those CrossFit games. And
Oh, she
things like
did.
that.
The competition. Wow.
Yep. Yep.
That's great.
Well, she enjoys it. They're getting back into it, doing some kind of make their own. They don't. There's not a CrossFit area
In it locally.
Locally, so they kind of get together. Her and her friends get together and do their kind of own thing. But
You guys got a big enough garage.
we do. Yeah,
can
we
run
don't.
up
We
and-
don't
you
have.
can
I
run
tell you,
up
it's
and down
hard to
your
do. We have steel weights. So it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to do CrossFit with steel weights
they're
because
dropping those things.
Yeah.
You need bumper plates.
Mark Ripto says it's not a rep if you drop it.
I know. I don't let our guys drop them.
You put them down slow.
Yeah.
Do you have rubber?
If we're doing multiple deads, right? So we're like, if you do a set of 5, I'll let them drop the last one. If they can get that 5th one up, I'll let them drop the last one.
But do you have rubber weights?
Yeah. All right. Well, as always, everybody, thank you for being part of our conversation. The Coaching Life podcast would not exist if we didn't think that there was, well, it actually would probably. We'd still talk. We just may not record it. We'd still talk about this stuff. We just wouldn't record it. Heck, we were doing it before we started recording it. So if there's 1 or 2 people listening throughout the week,
People are listening over our shoulders and B-dubs.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
we just thought, hey.
Eavesdropping, that's right. Why don't we start recording these? So. Yeah, thank you for listening. And it's 2 weeks out from Christmas, so Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. If you like the Coaching Life podcast, we did something really cool a couple years ago called the 12 Days of Coaching. And right about now would be a good time because what is it, December? Well, it's the 14th. So yesterday would have been a good day to start it. But go back and listen. It's just they're listed by day 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're recording on a day 2. Right now it would be leading up to Christmas. And they were just little 5-10 minute long, just sort of like brief thoughts. Yeah. On particular topics. And some of those topics might be really interesting to you. So, and they're really easy, they should be easy to listen to. They're short.
Yeah. For all the people out there complaining about our long episodes.
That's right. You might like those.
I thought this episode would be about 30 minutes.
I did too, but we got on a couple tangents there.
Yeah.
A couple things that you want me to edit out, but I'm not going to.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation and all the secrets that was relayed and all that stuff. So
We still have another one. We'll save it though. The time that you passed out at work.
I haven't told that story.
Not on the recording.
I didn't pass out. I got knocked out. I got submitted.
That's what it was. It wasn't. Yeah, you were doing a little UFC. Down at OIT or.
Yeah. We'll tell that story when it's fitting.
That's a cliffhanger.
Thanks for joining us.